Hello, everyone. You're very welcome back here to episode 71 of the Football Fanatic podcast. Daniel Coulter here, who's going to be putting the lads through their paces. Two very shook men after a stag at the weekend. We'll get to that in a second. Thanks to everybody who's been liking us and sharing our stuff and engaging with us on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And now over to these two men who had a wild time in Dingle before we get into the football. Who wants to go first? What happened? Tell us about it.
Well, it was interesting. A friend of the pod, Kieran, for those who are used to listening to us, was Dex brother was his big weekend, and we went out Dingle, and what goes west stays in the west, and that's all there's to it.
Jesus Christ. No.
I see there was a football team too, to part of the Stag. So, Dec, tell us about that.
Yeah, it was excellent. I was all surprised. Kier didn't have an idea where he was going. We ended up at a Division One League of Ireland match, Kerry FC versus Athlone Town of all teams. It was perfectly timed. And Kieran, living in Kerry for the last 4 to 5 years, he has kind of grown fond of Kerry FC, and we had him decked out in the green and gold, and he got brought out onto the pitch beforehand. He was sponsoring the match ball, and they kind of introduced him, and he got photos taken, and it was
Nice.
actually it was brilliant. It was brilliant. He really enjoyed it, and they didn't
as
let us.
as the Kerry FC people booed him and beat their
Yeah.
drum against him.
Yeah, no, it was excellent. He had the jersey on, the whole decked out, and have to say it's a nice setup. They're definitely it's a work in progress, but it's definitely a
Yeah.
nice setup. And look, they bet Athlone 3-0, and to be honest, it wasn't the most beautiful watch.
No,
Maz, you'll testify to that
no,
as well.
it wasn't technically the most beautiful, but there was plenty of like hard hitting tackles and
Yeah.
and kicking people and things like that. Like
No, in
enjoyed
fairness, the goals were well
Yeah.
taken, and there were one or
the new
two. Sorry.
Kerry were definitely the dominant team. Like, isn't they
Yeah.
were a threat on the
Yeah.
counter each time,
Which is kind of
and you
scary,
enjoyed.
considering this is their second year in the league. And I think Athlone, after the weekend against, sacked their manager. He left. He's gone.
Yeah.
After that, but like it's kind of scary enough that's because Kerry were expected to be the whipping boys. But I think I remember rightly last season when their tickets went on sale, they sold out like for the season. So
Yeah.
seems to be a love for
There is
having a
this.
team down there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they definitely seem to be doing it right in terms of kind of setting up a club, managing a club, kind of carrying a club over from season to season. Like there's definitely interest there,
Mm.
And
sponsorship. The
even
kind
the
of
even the fans that were there, like, were it's clearly marketed and targeting to get like young teenagers
oh
and that
yeah,
kind of age group families there to
oh yeah.
get
There was
involved, to
some.
build that fan base and grow up with a
Yeah,
team. I think, like.
yeah. There was a big group of kind of young lads there. One of them had a drum. Could have thrown the fucking thing out onto the pitch. He was banging it that loud. But no, there were very good fans in fairness, and well run, kind of the whole setup. And look, it's the first time they've had a team down there, so like hopefully it'll go from strength to strength. There
And
have been teams over the years that have come and gone, so hopefully it's not a repeat of that. But yeah, good club.
everyone survived. Everyone survived the Stag. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
We've no
Everyone's
Howard this evening. Was he due to
good
come
clean
on?
fun.
No.
When you ask that
Um,
everyone survived the stag, there's a question mark over Howard Costello. But that's a conversation for after the podcast because Howard is a machine, and I saw him in the flesh at the weekend becoming a machine, and he was pure filth what Howard Costello did at the weekend,
Jesus,
but
Tech. I was with Howard the whole time. Pure filth is a
pure
step too
filth
far.
in the best possible way. I mean, he's an absolute machine. Like he needs his own podcast, you know. But look, Howard will be back in the next few weeks, and I'll let him tell you himself just
Right.
how
Well,
much.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. No, Grant, we'll move on. So yeah, Howard, wherever you are, we're thinking of you, buddy, and hopefully we'll have you back on. And surprised he's
Godspeed.
not here considering the Champions League result from last week. But we'll get into it. So we're going to start actually with the Champions League places. I think is the place to start because there was a lot of clubs that are in the hunt for that kind of 200 plus million at getting into the Champions League will get you. So we're going to start with City. We haven't had you on deck in a while, so we want to kind of
Yeah.
get your thoughts maybe on KDB finishing, and then we'll get into the game. But what are your initial thoughts? I read today that apparently he wanted to stay, but they didn't offer him a new deal. is what I read. Whether or not that's true or not, I'm not 100% sure, but that seems to be what was coming out there today in the media. But I suppose, firstly, what's your thoughts on him leaving? Would you like them to stay? Or you think it's a time for him to move on?
I mean, the overall feeling was that like he was going to be leaving at the end of the season, and his performances were reflective of, it wasn't the old Kevin De Bruyne that we all know, but all of a sudden in the last 3 to 4 games, we've definitely seen kind of the old De Bruyne in patches, and especially at the weekend, I thought he was excellent. Apart from the first 30 minutes where we were very poor, we then came alive, and De Bruyne was at the center of all that. Um, I mean, he's 33. He's going to be 34 in May. But I mean, if he can pull out performances like that, at the weekend, I mean, surely he is worth another year. If it was City who didn't offer him and he did want to stay, I mean, you'd have to question the decision making there. Because I mean, I heard Guardiola say at the weekend that Gundogan has just surpassed the amount of games he needs
Yes.
to extend his contract by one
Yeah, I read
year.
that. Yeah.
I mean, look, Gundogan was a fantastic player for City. I mean, this season he's come back. I mean, he's not a patch in the player he was, but fair enough. The whole team have been nowhere near their best. But if there's talk of Gundogan staying another year, I mean, surely, Jesus Christ, you'd have De Bruyne as a possibility of staying another year as well. If it was just to come off the bench, if it was just to kind of guide the younger players for another year, just to be some sort of a kind of leader in the dressing room because we need as
Mm.
many as we can. Surely he would be worth taking a not taking a chance. There's no chance on it. Like he's been our best player for the last 9, 10 years. Um, if the option was there to give him another year, 100% do it. But I mean, I don't. Nothing seems to be kind of indicating that that's there. I do think he'll leave.
Yeah.
I think he'll end up in America. Although I did read somewhere today that he could be willing to stay in the Premier League, but I can't see that happening. I hope.
Yeah,
I
he was
hope.
quoted
No.
mentioning, like, I suppose family set up in that his
Yeah.
kids don't know anything else other than Manchester, and he doesn't know how comfortable he is with moving them. They also said that this was the first game he felt that he played pain free.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I already had a hernia or something like that, which hadn't been reported. I'd wonder as well, like, wonder you think, is there some sort of kind of um there? Do you think that's kind of coming between them? I don't think there is, but I have
I,
read that there could
yeah.
be.
Yeah. This with Pep and KDB, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's no doubt that definitely something went on there.
Mm.
Two very very strong characters. I think it's if you were to look at say the Salah situation, which we will talk about in a few. But Salah, I suppose he's durable. He's going to play nearly every game. And he's whatever it's been reported somewhere between 350 grand and maybe 400 grand or something a week. So versus KDB, who he isn't durable. He's not going to be able to play a full season. He has picked up a lot of injuries the last number of years. So if it came down to a point of whether or not KDB was, not wanting to take a pay cut, he's not. Like I think KDB he was before Haaland's new
Three,
contract. I think he was the highest paid player in the league. I think
I
before
think
Haaland's
he's
new deal.
300, 350. Yeah.
Yeah. So you wonder, is it would that have been a part of the negotiation? Because of course if he's only going to be able to play maybe 15, 20 games,
Yeah.
to justify that wage. It's just interesting. I read it today. I also read apparently he's a boyhood Liverpool fan.
Okay.
Which was an interesting one that I read today as well. But yeah, I at the weekend I thought he was brilliant.
It was.
He was involved in everything, which is kind of what he's done for the last nearly decade, isn't it? That anything good
Yeah.
the City do, comes through him. He was involved. Where in games gone by, as I think I mentioned a while ago on the pod, like that he looked so slow and just disinterested, but
He
like he
did.
really
Yeah.
was. He really was on it, and I think only for him, I'm not sure whether or not City would have came back into that game and went on to win it. I thought Palace for the first 30 minutes were excellent and should have been 3-0 up. As I think
Yeah.
I said that we were talking about it yesterday, like they missed two great chances. Eze shouldn't have been offside, and like it was a big win for them when you look at the table
Absolutely. Yeah.
and what else went on at the weekend. It was huge. But there's no doubt that there's still cracks there, and defensively, like Ederson, Diaz, you can pick or pick Rico Lewis. The majority of them, I think, at the back just aren't good enough. I know they are missing a few experienced players like Kanji, I think Ake and Stones are all still out. But like, yeah, but defensively at the moment, you can't have any faith in them, especially they have a couple of big games coming up themselves. I think Villa they
Yeah.
play soon as well, but. It'll be interesting to see what way it's going to pan out, especially like when you see what happened in a few of the other teams of the weekend. Moss, what's your overall take, I suppose, like, look, Palace, I think, changed their system at half time, took off Mateta, decided to put an extra man in the middle of the field and wanted to, I think what Glasner's words were, he wanted to basically stop the pockets of space from happening, but it backfired, and he admitted it afterwards that it was probably the wrong move, because they were 2-2 was probably an unfair scoreline on them at half time. But what did you make of the game, and in general, what would you think of City's chances of getting one of the Champions League spots?
Yeah, look, we were kind of looking at it, and we started the first 20 minutes. Deck and myself were just looking at it, and they were like, "This is awful." And when that ball went into Eze, he was kind of in. It was criminal that he let himself be offside in that situation, and he finished it so well. You're like, Jesus, how is this going to end? And that free kick changed the game, and from that moment on, De Bruyne just seemed to be conducting the orchestra, and they took over. And to be honest, they could have scored a, a 3-2. It was an excellent game, I suppose, because Palace were still trying to get in it. But in the last 15 minutes, then it kind of got a bit scrappier, and City pulled away and whatnot. So if that City peppering goals, controlling possession, it's the best form of their defense when their defense is as weak as it is at the minute, is them trying to control and create their chances. And if they could get a run of that with De Bruyne in a bit of form, you wouldn't rule them out making a comfortable enough charge to get into that Champions League place. But is that a once off? And is he going to be pain free in the next game? Is a big question. But he has a kind of personality, I think, that when someone tells him he can't do something, he's 100 times more
Yeah.
likely to do it. Based on how his reaction was at Chelsea, being left out of Chelsea and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a
And if
Belgium
that
thing, I
was the
think, is it?
case, I think it might be a matter of him showing
Yeah.
off for the last couple of weeks. And it does question, if he is only 33 and he is able to put in the performance, would you maybe, you're saying he's been linked to the US, but if he's at that performance level, he's probably shouldn't be going to the US. Probably could still have something contribute to a top European team, maybe just not in the Premier League. Like Italy might be a brilliant place for him to play at a slightly slower pace and still show his skill set. So I suppose if they could get that win-win situation, get the best out of him for the last while, let him end in a high, and lead the team, I I would be optimistic about them getting that top four spot.
Mm.
But if he's going to be hampered by pain and discomfort, and that's going to affect him playing, then to be honest, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be other people to step up and take on responsibility uh, and lead that team and drag that team and turn a game like that around. I
Yeah.
don't see anyone else really there to do it. So I think a huge amount will depend on, can he go out in a high. But he's proved before, when someone says he can't do something, that he can really take that and run with it. So I think a huge amount will hinge on his performances for the rest of the season.
Mm. I can
Here,
give you the
here.
final word. You think they get Champions League?
I do. Based on our last four fixtures, like, they're no fixtures easy, but they're definitely more favourable than the other teams around us, and as well that the other teams have to play each other. Newcastle and Villa, Chelsea are in there with Villa and Newcastle as well. We have to play Villa as well at home in on Tuesday week. So yeah, our last few games, I think they are Wolves, Southampton, Brentford. Again, they're home games as well. I do think we'll get there, but I think we'll get fifth. I don't think we'll get fourth. I think Newcastle are going to get fourth, because they just have brilliant momentum at the moment. And probably deservedly so. I mean, I do think Forest. But then again, saying that, the Forest, they, like, at the weekend, you saw they slipped up. So I mean, they're not guaranteed it. You'd love to see them get it. I
Mm.
would, anyways.
Mm.
But I mean, they're not guaranteed it. I do think it'll be Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Newcastle, and City for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, goes on and moving on to Forest, like, that was a bit of a slip. Even though I think, you City have to go away, don't they, to Everton next?
Yeah. No,
Just whoever.
sorry, on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's kind of whoever plays Everton at the moment, you're just in for a tough game. I think
Hmm.
whoever plays them, but it was a slip up, and it was a game where really, even the point at the end, again, come the end of the season, will that be crucial?
Yeah.
It looked like Everton had plenty of chances to win the game, and is there just maybe a question mark, small question mark, over Forest's consistency that they had maybe earlier in the season, that it's coming in now too, the real kind of last few games, the championship, the Champions League winning games, you would say, in the last few that are left. So, like, are we saying, look at Newcastle, and we'll get on to them in a minute, like the table, I think if they win, they go above Forest, do they? If they
Yeah,
win?
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a game in
But
hand and they'd be above Forest
yeah.
by
What,
2
what do we
points?
think? what do you think on I suppose just Forest, even not necessarily on the game? I don't know if you got to see any or anything like that, but like if you had to say on it, but just in general, would you be questioning now whether or not as when you see the likes of Newcastle, the full momentum seem to be a bit stop start maybe for Forest?
I mean, I'm looking at the table now. I mean,
What
do
do
you
you
want to go
think,
for
Jack?
Moss?
Either or,
Sorry,
Um,
Jack.
I no, you're fine. What's it called? I think not far as I suppose, given how well they've been all season long, they've been in third for like months on end. 9 games left. I mean, they're only human. They're bound to kind of feel the pressure, and they're bound to kind of slip up here or there. But I just think that they have enough momentum built up that they will get across the line. But in 6, 7 weeks, like there will be a few scares along the way. Um, I do think they'll get there though, and deservedly so. They've been brilliant, and they've built a team. And I know we've laughed at the owner numerous times, but what do you call it? He has backed the managers, and it's not just one manager. There have been numerous managers there,
Mm.
but he has backed them, and they seem to have a kind of a plan in place, and it's reaping rewards. I mean, they're on the verge of Champions League football. If they get that, more money, more players, maybe back to the glory days for Nottingham Forest. But there's going to be a few scares, I think, for them, but I do think they will get over the line in the end.
Just see the last game of the season. They have a home game against Chelsea, which would be interesting to
Oh,
see where
yes. Lovely.
where they may or may not be come that game. So, Mas, are you okay? We might just move on to just going to ask your opinion on their next game, which was another Champions League hopeful, which was Chelsea and your beloved Ipswich.
Yeah.
So, again, we were in we've talked about this in the pod numerous times. Ipswich going and getting a decent lead and not being able to see it through, which is the story of their season. And then maybe you might talk a bit about Chelsea and what's going on because I heard Maresca talking about the environment and there's a lot of kind of negative maybe pieces coming out in if you're reading between the lines of what he's saying in his press conferences at the moment. All doesn't seem to be well, and this has been an ongoing thing for Chelsea. Like they've taken very few points since Christmas. Like what are we putting it down to? And again, if we're talking about momentum, they seem to be the one at the moment of all the teams that are really have just can't seem to be able to get back going. What do you make of it all?
I suppose on this particular game, Ipswich, I suppose 2-0 up, they were deservedly so. Um, and Chelsea got turned the screw in the second half and took over. And realistically, only for three absolutely outstanding saves from Ipswich goalkeeper Palmer, were on their third choice at this stage. Um, he made three phenomenal saves, particularly one from Enzo Fernandez at the end. And other than that, it would have been 3-2. And it was the same old story with Ipswich all season. They do play great football. At times, they can cut teams open, they can score, but they just can't hold a lead. And after Arsenal, are ahead of Arsenal are next to them, but they've lost an awful lot of points from winning positions. They're the club that have lost the most. Um, and it's just a story. I suppose it tells the story of a season of what could have been. On the other side, you're looking at Chelsea, and like I guess you would say, oh well, look, he kind of had the new manager bounce and they went well. They had a nice run of fixtures and then they've kind of struggled since. But it really looks like Cole Palmer was holding, like carrying the ship as a 21-year
Yeah.
old after spending billion on players, and he's lost form and the whole team's fallen apart. Now look, that's unfair and simplifies it a little bit. Based on injuries, etc., and what they've lost defensively with Fafana been out, but even then they were still very unconvincing at the back and the goalkeeper. And I guess as a Chelsea fan, you're looking at a team that you want to get Champions League and you drop 5 points to Ipswich. Like
Mm.
that's not on. You can't. You're not going to be a team to get the Champions League if you're losing, dropping points like that. And furthermore, you're looking at a pattern that is repetitive of what happened in Maresca when he was at Leicester, where they took off brilliantly till Christmas and then floundered their way to for the second half of the season, just scraping in back into Champions League or back into the Premier League. And it's kind of very worrying that you're seeing the same cycle repeat itself. And when the manager is talking about the atmosphere and even the crowd, there was a lot of reference from players and managers to like the support. And like if you're getting to the point where you're telling your fans to what to do, you know you're in trouble. And I just feel like it's going to fall apart. And I would be surprised if that last game of the season between Forest and Chelsea still have a chance of getting top
Mm.
five. That's my
And
general
just
feeling.
yeah, and can I ask both of you then as well? In regards, if Chelsea fail to get Champions League football this season, you think the Maresca will be there next season?
Um, I do. I think that they will win the conference, and that will get them into the Europa League. Whether they get that position anyways in the league, I don't know. But I think he'll be there next. I think he's shown enough, regardless of it being chaotic. I think he has shown enough that he deserves a second season at it. Like for years, Chelsea were chopping and changing managers, too, albeit with a lot of success. Stability is what a club like that needs when they're kind of bringing in so many players and so many players are going out. They need something there that is stable, and the manager, I think, has done enough to warrant a second season. Now, saying that, if they were to get knocked out of the conference and they were to completely implode in the league in the last 9, 10 games,
Mm.
he could definitely be gone. But I
It's
think
kind
he'll
of
stay.
yeah, I think it's kind of a role reversal, isn't it? Though it was Pop started slowly, and then by the end of the season, people were starting to kind of really get, he looked like he was getting a shoot out of them, and he got the job. So we're in a kind of a different scenario. But I just think with Chelsea being Chelsea, and there's been a lot of murmurs around once things started to go sour that Chelsea they spent so much money yet they brought in a championship level manager.
Yeah.
And a lot of that kind of just that kind of talk. But what do you think, Moss? I have a feeling though, from where they were, which was second and potentially in a title race, to now, they might even end up in Europe at all, nearly, or in, I suppose, as Dex said there, they'll probably end up winning the conference and they'll end up in the Europa League. But what would your feeling be there on Maresca? Do you think he'll get a second season if they don't get Champions League?
Um, I'm maybe because he is kind of been hired in that he's not a manager, he's a coach, and
Mm.
that like fits the mold of what they're trying to if they think they know what they're trying to create. Um, I personally don't think he's there. I wouldn't like him if he was manager of my club to still be there at the end of the season, but like beyond the end of the season. And even if they win the Conference League, like they should win the Conference League. But if someone manages to shut up shop and defend it against them and get them on the counter, like I wouldn't trust them to have that kind of great determination turning around. Like they kind of, they're playing teams that they feel and act and should be 10 times better than them. Their whole squad is worth more than the rest every other team in the league, like or in the conference. So there's just a general expectation that you should win that, like without a question.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be confident that they in a tight game, which inevitably a semi final or a final could be. I would trust that this current crop to step up and have leaders in it and drag themselves because the likes of Enzo Fernandez and Cucurella, like both of them have experienced success with their club or their countries, like winning the Copa America or winning the Euros, etc.
Mm.
And like Roy Keane is Leighton United or whatever, fair enough. But he's turned around saying a good teammate is one who expects you or pushes you to raise your standards. And I look around that Chelsea team and I don't see who are the standard setters and I don't see who are going to demand more of others. It doesn't need to be shouting in someone's face, but I just feel like there's a general acceptance like we conceded 2 goals, right, we'll score. Even
Mm.
Sancho came on, he scored a beautiful goal. There was like it wasn't a euphoria from all players. It was like a relief, that they
Mm.
got back in the game as opposed to it. So I don't know. I just don't feel watching them. There's enough there for to be like Maresca. Yeah, 100%. I back him. And I don't think there's a general feeling among the Chelsea supporters that he's good enough for their club either.
Yeah, and there's I find I suppose the when you look at the team that played at the weekend, and I suppose if we go across even the squads that are left in it, like as you said there, Moss, like the reliance on Palmer. When you look at a lot of the players that are there that haven't really done it, could you see them even like? Could you see like the Jackson in the Champions League next year? I don't know. When you look at the player for player, and it'll be interesting as well if Chelsea don't get it. That'll be another season with no Champions League football. Like, how long will Cole Palmer? Even though he signed, I don't know, a gazillion year contract with them, but like
Yeah.
he's too good to not be playing in the Premier League. They're like they didn't even register him for the first half of the season in the Conference League. That's how little you know what I mean?
Thought of
Like
it, like,
the thought of it, yeah. So it'll be interesting anyway to see. But it does look at the moment like the wheels have very much come off, and even with Jackson coming back from injury, Again, a couple of games I watched there, he's missing a host of chances, which is kind of just a bit. I think very similar to Nunes. He can go through periods of brilliance, but then through periods of just you'd be distraught watching him with him up front. So, yeah, look, I suppose we'll find out very shortly in the next few weeks whether or not they can get things going again. But he's shown no sign of being able to stop the rot really, and it's been just kind of very much. If Palmer doesn't do anything, they're struggling to score or to get over the line. They've drawn some amount of games as well. I think they've drawn a serious amount. But we'll move on from Chelsea. Just a quick word on Villa. It was I think a standard win. Southampton back the bus. Once one went in, then the floodgates opened, and for Southampton, it's another defeat. And Villa are still again momentum, I think, behind them. A few big games coming up as the likes of Newcastle and City, but they're firmly in the mix too. What would you think, Villa? With Emery as well, being the manager that he is. Champions League, then we'll get on to that, but it looks like they may go out of that. But what would your thoughts be on Villa? Would they be managed to nick a spot? No.
Well, not from me. I do think it'll be again Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Newcastle, and City. They'll just miss out. They'd probably be sixth for me. But I mean, sixth in terms of kind of the season that they've had. Like they're a team on the up, and they have been pushing all season long, and what do you call it? They have had an excellent Champions League campaign. It's not over. No, it's a very big ask for them to turn around, the tie against PSG. But I think they've had an excellent season. They're still in the FA Cup, and they're playing Palace in the semi-final, and for me, they're definitely favourites for that. So, most likely in an FA Cup final against either Forest or Man City. I mean, the way we're playing, you wouldn't back them to beat Man City in a final if we got there. Forest as well, like Villa and Forest. I mean, that's a coin toss. So I mean, it could still be an excellent season if they weren't to get Champions League football. I mean, they will likely get to an FA Cup final. I think, quarter final of the Champions League. I mean, it's very positive for Villa at the moment. They've brought in some excellent players, and you can see that they were very astute in the transfer market in January. So I mean, it's all positive for Villa. I don't think that they will get top five, but they will be in Europe next season. And yeah, great season for them. But then look, saying that, look, anything can happen in the last 10 games. I mean, if City mess up, they could easily take City's spot, and they will be back in the Champions League. So you never know.
Yeah, it looks like a big week for them with the Champions League. And just looking, they have Newcastle and City Moss then playing them back to back. They're the midweek game as well. So it's a big 10 days or so for them. What would your feeling be?
Yeah. It's a big 10 days for them, yeah. To be honest, look, PSG are a different animal to Villa, and there is a clear difference in ability, particularly midfield between the two places. So I would be delighted. I would be delighted, but I wouldn't expect them to be able to turn that around. It'd be interesting to see if they got penalty though. Would Asensio be on them after missing the
Oh,
two of the
jeez.
weekend,
Yeah.
or if it goes to penalties, if they somehow manage to get it that far?
I'm surprised he
I
got the
did.
second one though. It's like
The second one, yeah.
this usually happen. Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought
Mm.
that was an interesting note out of it. But yeah, I'm looking at it here, and yeah, I feel like the only spot really, unless Forest implode, I really like Forest. I'm kind of a bit worried about Forest. I think Newcastle are going to take third, and Forest drop down to fourth, and I wouldn't be like Chelsea or yeah. I don't know. It's a very tight one.
It
I
is.
feel like Memento's
It's very
behind them, but
interesting.
I
If
think the
Villa if
Champions.
Villa go to City tomorrow week and beat us at City, well then forget what I'm after predicting there. Like, put Villa in City's place.
Okay, we don't
Honest to
bring up
God.
bad predictions from previous weeks, isn't that right, Dan?
Yeah,
We
that's
won't
right. We don't
mention our
bring them
Champions
up.
League predictions
We
from last
won't.
week, will we?
We won't. No. My God. Yeah. And we will get on to that. So yeah, so I just like we just again just at the moment with what's left, just give us your Champions League spots there, Deck,
Um,
as things stand. Who would
I
you give
think
them
so.
to?
Yeah. Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Newcastle, and City.
As
Okay.
it is. As it
Yeah.
is. I would question. I'm a little bit concerned about Forest jumping off. I just
Mm.
felt they looked very flat against Everton, and tried to play their game, and Everton bet them at their own game, hitting them on the counter. Now there was a little poetic justice, as a United fan watching and them break away from their corner and score. I did take a bit of satisfaction out of that. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah.
The-
Moyes is in charge from the start of the year. Everton will be sixth apparently. That's the prediction.
yeah.
How do you see it
Wow.
ending, Moss, the Champions League spots?
Yeah, I do. I just have a small bit of concern deck of Forest dropping off, because it's so tight. Like,
Yeah.
and Newcastle,
And who would take their place if you?
I feel like Villa have the momentum behind them,
Okay.
but I don't trust Chelsea at all. And the only one I can really see dropping off there is Forest, potentially City. I just don't think City have just a little bit too much quality to drop off out of the
I was
Champions League spots.
I was chatting to Howard the weekend about Chelsea, and he goes, "Dick, I'm so fucking happy at what's happening today." Yeah, very
Yeah,
funny.
I can well imagine.
Classically unbiased Howard towards Chelsea, anyway.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure he spat on the ground after he said that as well.
The only thing I will say is for Forest, they have Spurs next. So,
All right.
just this quick word on Spurs. That was their, I think, 17th defeat in the league this season, which is
Madness.
just madness. But I know all the talk is about Thursday. They've left themselves a bit of work to do. Frankfurt have been going well in Germany all year. I don't personally see it. But just on them, do you think and will even, if they get knocked out of the Europa League on Thursday night, like will and even get to the end of the season, or do you think the change would be made instantly? Like I can't see unless he wins the Europa League him having any chance of being there next season. What do you think?
I think he's gone at the end of the season. I think he's gone.
Yeah, I don't.
Ross?
Unless they're out, they get badly beaten by Frankfurt. I think financially they'll look at it. No, I won't not willing to pay him out of his contract yet. I can't imagine Levy wasting money to get no benefit of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're going to finish down there anyway, no matter who they appoint. Even if they went on a great last 8 or 9 games, they're still going to be bottom half. So what's the point? Like,
Did you see the goals? You can see, like it was just again.
it
It was a
was brilliant.
Spurs all
I
over.
loved it. Right, Vicario was like, "Fuck this! I'm not a goalkeeper. I don't want to. I want." It's like a goalkeeper you put in goal at five-a-side who doesn't want to play in goal, wants to play outfield, and just
Yeah.
keeps trying to spray passes. And you're like, "What you do, man?" Like, it was awful. It was absolutely. But Wolves weren't much better. Semenyo was trying to backheel click clearance. He was trying to backheel it as a clearance as he ran towards his own goal. And you're like, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? And Tell scored. Oh, it was chaotic. But this is why we still support Ange, because he creates chaos. And
Well,
it's
look, and this is it, isn't it? This is just who we are, mate. This is who we are,
how we
mate.
are,
And
mate.
that
Well,
is,
Christian Romero just like trying to block the ball and was like, oh yeah, no, sure you have it there and run in straight away. Like,
yeah,
it's
when Wolves are
comical.
scoring 4 goals against you, that you're in trouble. And unlike what he had earlier in the season, where he was able to say, players are injured, he has most of them back, like Romero, as you mentioned there, Mossy, and just a complete train wreck of a season. That's really, it's Frankfurt, or I don't know. And just definitely, you can even see it in him. He's not the same man as at all. Even like when you look at him, you hear him in his press conferences. He's a man that probably needs to be just put out of his misery, like euthanized, like from the Premier League. Like,
Just expunges history and contribution. It never happened.
Never
I
happened.
feel sorry for him. He's yeah. Anyway, and that's enough on Spurs. Let's get on to the last of our Champions League. I got the best for last. Newcastle, Man United. It was yeah. I thought Newcastle were that Newcastle midfield will outbattle probably every other midfield in the Premier League, as they have done for most of the season. Yeah, just momentum train completely behind them and full of confidence, and they were up for the fight. And I think, look, 4-1, a scoreline. But regardless of that, I think you were looking at two sides that are just at the moment, there's such a difference in quality between what Newcastle have and what Man United have. And I think I said last week in the pod, they're definitely getting a place, and it looks like they may get third now if they can keep going the way they're going. Moss, I know Leon, and that was the big deflection I felt from all of the press conference afterwards was, it's all about Thursday, it's all about Thursday. And yes, granted, it is all about Thursday, but what did you make of the game? And it's another
Look,
it's another baiting
I
that they
wasn't.
got.
I wasn't optimistic, Dan. Let's be honest, right? Like, Liverpool are winning the league, and ye were pushed very hard by this team. They at home they really pushed Arsenal.
Yeah.
The City, like they're a very good team, and they're exceptional at home. And it was an inconvenient game that we did not want, where the whole, like, several of the like United fan base podcast said it. We're not going to win. Try not get hockeyed. That was essentially the view going into it. Now 4-1 is a bit of a hockey. Um, they were poor. Look, I thought the first 30 minutes they were all right. They sat back defensively. They were fine. But Newcastle's quality overtook it, and we can't. There's no denying that Newcastle are a completely different level, a different level of physicality. They actually probably play with a physicality that Amrin wants from his team, but
Mm,
just can't get from the players he has.
yeah.
And you can lose your rag, you can give out about Ramrin, you can go right keen full rant and give out about everything. But nobody, absolutely nobody in the world is walking into that Man United team and turning them into a top 3 or 4 uh, Premier League, Champions League playing team without time, money, and making players better and developing youth. I don't see how else to do it. I feel like it took Arteta time, it took Klopp time. Amrin, I still feel, is a great communicator. I feel like he has had an awful start from day one. It was awful. He told you before he got it, it was going to be awful. He didn't want to.
Suffering. What he said? We'll suffer. Not he
Like he
said.
was on about suffering from day one and said
Yeah,
the
yeah, he
first
was.
press conference he said this is going to be a storm. Like he knew it was going to be bad. Now I'd say it's a lot worse than he anticipated, but it's going to be bad. He has one shining light in that his Europa League could save an atrocious season. And when things are low and you don't perform, and this is what you're supposed to be focused on, I don't see as a press conference as a person what else I would have deflected to. Like Newcastle were better. We made stupid
Yeah, yeah,
mistakes to give them 2 other goals, and that sums it up. They were better. Joshua Xerxes' injury is a big blow because
yeah.
he's developed into quite an important player for us who is playing in good form, and him going up for that hamstring.
Silky. I like him.
Yeah,
And I've said this a
he
few
links the
times.
play well.
He
He's
does. Yeah,
developed a bit of understanding with Bruno, and I do think if you could get him, Bruno, and Mason Mount moving that ball and pressing, there might be something,
yeah,
some sort of improvement there. Not, I'm saying it's
yeah.
not going to long term, but
No,
I do.
I could see him. I could see him though as being not necessarily. He's not the answer as a card striker for United. I just felt that if he had two quick tens that were able to go by him, he has all of it in the locker. Like he's actually can pick a pass. He is that kind of silky touch. But if he had legs going by
Yeah,
him, I think he'd sit up and he'd create quite a bit. And I do think he's got better as the season has gone
yeah.
along, and
Like
it is a blow.
if you compare the Joshua Xerxes booed off against Newcastle in December
Yeah.
to what we've seen from him since that, really it was like a renaissance. The fan came behind him, the Stretford end the
Mm,
next game were chanting his name, and I think he took confidence from that he was being felt that he was being supported when things weren't going well, and he has repaid that since, and he scored important goals or two away your last 2 European games. So I think that's a big blow because Rasmus Højlund is just so off it, um,
mm.
that you're forced now to play with him, and there's no output there. So it's very worrying. I look, Leon is a massive, massive game, and we just got to, I suppose, put your support behind them and hope they manage to put a performance in. Um,
I would be
and there's nothing else
what
to.
do you call it? I just Onana. I know he was dropped and everything, but then the whole social media activity as well. Over the weekend, I can't remember specifically what he said, but did he have something on Instagram saying after the reserve keeper made mistakes as well? He was on social media over the weekend, wasn't he?
I only half read a deck. I didn't. I was like, I can't get. I
Yeah,
was like, I wasn't in a fit state for that level of negativity on top of losing 4-1.
I
I
know.
think, I
I
think, I think,
just
yeah, I think what you can do though, Nick, is I think, like, even just without, didn't see the social media thing, but like, I think you can add now. It's fair to say you can add it to the list of what Man United need in the summer that they probably need it now at this stage. A new goalkeeper because they're again, as you're on about Massey with youth and time. I don't think he's somebody that you can really put any confidence behind. I just don't see it. Like the goals that he's conceding, like they're it's not as like it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
like he's
his
hand, he
positional
doesn't have
sense is
hands.
atrocious. Right, he was bought to
Yeah.
be a player play out of the back. He's made one of the most number of long kickouts to a
Mm.
forward of any goalkeeper, which was supposed to be his biggest strength. He positional sense is awful. He spills the ball regularly. I I've ranted about how much I think he is a poor purchase and doesn't add to our team. But sure, why would he be? If you're bringing on Bayendale, who's atrociously bad at playing out with his feet. Oh, and it does look very good. So I don't know whether it's a lack of competition behind the scenes. I don't know what it is. He's not someone to give you confidence, but at the end of the day, if you're tight for money, he's probably not number one to change either. So
Yeah,
he
Yeah,
could be
true.
there next year, and you're just gonna have
yeah,
to accept that.
yeah. I
He
think I just
does
say,
pull off some decent saves, though. That's the thing. I know he makes numerous mistakes, idiot, stupid mistakes, awful bad. But he does pull off some fantastic saves as well. So he does have a
but
tiny little bit
But
of
is
credit
the
left.
sign of a good keeper not a keeper that you want solid 7 out of 10?
Yeah,
That's a good
100%.
keeper who you
Yeah.
can trust. That's what the defensive line
yeah,
wants. A defense. You might be able to build that world class save. Fair play to you. But if you're able to pass the ball straight to the opposition straight in front of your goal, or flapping it or whatever, like that destroys the confidence in the back line and destroys that trust. Like he's more the mistakes as a United keeper in his length of United career, which is what 2.5 seasons, than
yeah.
De Gea
That
had in his entire 13 years.
12
And
or
like
13 years. Yeah,
De Gea was seen as an as a accident prone or error prone keeper by the time he was leaving United. So
yeah.
Yeah.
look,
You can't have a keeper that makes a world class save 1 minute and then does like his best David Blaine impression where his gloves just fucking disappear the next. But you know what I mean? It's like it's crazy. Like the goal there maybe
and I
against Leon.
suppose it's happened on the biggest stages for United. It's happened
Yeah, yeah,
twice or 3 times in Champions League, 3 times against Bayern last year, and then when a game that was so important it hampered the team against Leon. Do you know, like, as in, we could have
yeah,
won that 2-0 realistically if he had any sort of goalkeeping performance. But look, you're going to hear me talk about United, and they're going to be a slow and steady growth for the next
yeah.
2 years. We'll get better, and I think Amron is the man to take us there. Although I think I'm in the minority, becoming more so in the minority.
Yeah, there is a shift in that too. I think again he hasn't been given. You know, he needs to be given a full season, and with changes, hopefully to be able to make a few changes. But again, that'll all be money dependent. But let's quickly fly through the rest of the games, then let's get on to the European football and other bits and pieces. So, the Liverpool Arsenal, I suppose, Liverpool the game. They were decent first half and horrendous second half, and definitely have robbed West Ham of a point. I think in West Ham were far better second half, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say about Liverpool's second half performance. Just that they were really, really mediocre, and you know West Ham is, and I wouldn't mind. I watch West Ham anytime I watch them this season. I messaged Ronan. I said, regardless, besides maybe the relegated teams, West Ham have been the worst side that I've watched this season. Even since Potter has come in, I don't think they really got any better. They're terrible. But they came to Anfield and bet us off the park in particular second half. So yeah, don't know what to make of it. They kind of just crawled over the line yesterday, and like I think it was interesting in his 100th game as Liverpool captain to get the winning goal, and sounds as if he'll have his contract signed and sealed this week too. So
To be
yeah,
fair, he was only
positive.
making up for his own error. Like he kicked
Yeah,
the ball
yeah.
against Andy Robinson to
Poor
get the back in
Robertson
it.
just yeah. Poor Robertson just can't seem to not be involved in something negative as well this season. So, but no, they were poor anyway. I think that if you likes of Bowen and Kudos, there's a Piqueta, like West Ham have a couple of really good players. They just have a lot of shite around it, and that's the
Yeah.
reality of it. Like players just aren't good enough. And you know Potter does have a bit of a job on there because when you look at that table again, if the three weren't as bad, we talk about Man United and Spurs being down maybe in a relegation fight if any of them were half decent at the bottom three. But West Ham are another one that like, would definitely have been in a relegation scrap this season, only for how bad the three promoted teams are. So yeah, that was my thoughts on it. It was a positive week though in the sense that King Mo has signed on for 2 years. So that's a huge, I think, a piece of the puzzle, and like coming, I think, along now too as well. It's kind of it sounds as well that everything's quite positive behind the scenes. They've already picked out a couple of targets. The talk that the Kirkes deal is actually potentially nearly done, which would be interesting to see if that is the case. But like there's talk, it's very positive coming out that they're going to spend a few bob, and that there's already a few kind of signings that are pretty much nearly ready to go. Which, if you go by Liverpool in the past couple of years, that's the way they did business. They kind of nearly had their dealings done early and knew what they were doing. So it'd be lovely if that was the case. But sure, I suppose we'll know again in the next month or two of what way that is. But Arsenal, I think again, look, it was. I don't know if you watched that game. Did you see it?
The
The
Arsenal
The
game.
Arsenal
Arsenal
game.
game.
Yes.
Yeah, Yeah, like it wasn't. I didn't think it was a great watch, and you could kind of see, he made a few changes. Arteta like that. I don't think that there was.
Yeah, their
It's
priority is on
yeah,
their priority on Wednesday getting over the line, I think.
yeah, and I think we'll move on to that because I don't think there was anything else you want to add to the weekend.
No.
No. Yeah, we might move on then to that because there was quite a few comments talking about how world class Madrid were and how Arsenal with Moreno up front and with a few players that have been offered for Arsenal and with Gabriel out that they were not going to be able to withhold the monstrous Galacticos of Madrid.
Yeah.
And some of us on the screens here have been proven very wrong with that. And it was an amazing night, Declan. What did you
I,
make of the Mighty Gunners?
absolutely unreal. The goals, all three goals, two free kicks from Rice. The second one for me was one of the best I've ever seen. And then the finish from Moreno, just like first time finish. It was like the perfect night for Arsenal in terms of Champions League. I don't know. I mean, I've spoke to a few people over the weekend about this that they say like Madrid they're not done yet.
What does Howard think? Over a few pints,
Uh,
what did he say?
he's confident, but again, like and a few people said this, like if Madrid were to get an early goal, that that
Yeah.
anything could happen. But I
Wouldn't have been
just,
me stirring the pot there saying that.
yeah, you might have been one of the lads that said that as well. But I think, well, I don't know.
You think it's done?
Yeah, I think it's done. It's 3-0. Like Arsenal, fair enough. Like they have made mistakes this season domestically, and they haven't challenged properly. But
Hmm.
they're not mugs either. Like, they have a 3-0 lead against Real Madrid. They're not going to be ridiculous, go out and all out attack. They're going to start the game, and if they have any sense, they're going to contain it and control it as best they can, stop any counters. Use their kind of players that kind of will keep the ball and just quieten down the Bernabeu as best they can. And I do. I think a 3-0, regardless of it being Real Madrid, I mean, they're off
Hmm.
form. They're not playing as
There's
well as they
something,
can.
yeah. There is something, and their performance was similar to when they came to Anfield earlier in the season, and we bet them off the park too.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, it just the kind of fight, the
Yeah.
leadership on the field, even being able to kind of get the ball down. And Madrid's in years gone by, they nearly sucked life out of the game. They could hold the ball well, but they were just completely, in particular, once Arsenal got the first, like
Yeah.
with three, you couldn't maybe even got another. Like it was one way traffic, and um, there was a lot of scratching the head. Bellingham looked completely lost. There were like
Yeah.
them players weren't the players that we know that they're capable of being. What do you think of them, Us?
Yeah, well, Arsenal, like once I felt like Arsenal were really on top, and I think I actually texted the group and was like Arsenal missed a few chances. To Courtois made some excellent saves, and I was like, geez, if Arsenal don't get the lead here, like this tie is definitely going to go away from them. It just felt like it could go that way, that they'd get hit on the counter or something. But I guess you see for me, Madrid, the impact of a player who was unwilling to work for the team being introduced, and the negative impact that can have on players around him, where Vinicius Jr. no longer feels like he needs to work because he's on an equal footing as a Galactico, as Mbappe.
Mm.
And then you have a team that are trying to make up for that lack of running, and therefore they don't merely, I suppose, have the linker in the play that they had with Cruz. And that unbalancing the system, although there's a lot of individual quality, and they're missing defenders, to be fair. And I think someone like Danny Carvajal would be an excellent leader in there to make people run. Um, but I just feel like there's something lacking there in terms of leadership and in terms of, yes, we have unbelievable quality, but Ancelotti's most successful teams worked exceptionally hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
There was
not the
always
case there.
ego at Madrid in the last 10 years with Ronaldo and Bale. Well, not Bale necessarily, but definitely Ronaldo and Benzema. But
Yeah.
they also worked. Whereas
Yeah,
this
and
team,
if you didn't work, you
yeah,
you weren't part of the team, and I feel like that's what an issue that happens when your manager is giving players without necessarily having the choice of who he wants, and that it feels like a product this season is a little bit of that product where Ancelotti spent all season tinkering, trying to find a way to fit them all in, and it had felt like they'd found a bit of momentum around a February time, which they usually do because they started to take
Mm.
over, started like making a push
Mbappe
again
was
in the
whacking them
league.
in, wasn't he?
And
Yeah.
Mbappe scoring great, like he scored plenty of goals in the league. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
as a successful season as Arsenal, but Or
Did you
sorry,
see his
as
tackle at the weekend? The
as
knacker.
Horrendous. Yeah,
yeah,
horrendous.
a terrible tackle, red card, and I look. Some will argue that's why he doesn't tackle, but I think that's just it
Do
gets
you think they have
lazy
a
and taking
chance,
your
Moss?
frustration on.
Have they
I
a chance?
feel I feel that if Madrid get a goal, there's an early in that game, the noise and the pressure of the Bernabeu will test an Arsenal team to a whole different level. And they're not a team who haven't. They're a team who have given up leads before or have let other teams back. They are guilty of it.
Hmm.
And the likes of Kipior or that, and that pressure would be someone I'd be like could easily make a mistake. And that is my fear for Arsenal that it'll be getting in their own heads and not doing the logical things and letting the environment dictate it. If they go in there and they're solid and work as a team and just work and defend together as a team, they should cut that out. But I
Yeah.
just feel there is that potential weakness there. And if Madrid bid up ahead of steam or something, they could score 4 goals. No
I,
problem.
I think if it was the Arsenal's best back four, I don't think there's
Yeah.
any chance that Madrid would score 3 goals against that. I think that
Yeah.
Arsenal back four, but because it's so disjointed with injuries and players then kind of coming back and then kind of getting injured again or they're getting knocked. You just don't know. You couldn't say for definite what the back four would be on the night. And as you said there, Moss, like they don't have that many leaders really, like players who they've only got to the semi final. Is it 2 or 3 times in the club's history in the Champions League? So they're not used to it as a club either. But I think it'd be a fair feat if Madrid were to overturn that. I think it'd be. I did. I
Yeah,
just. I
look,
just.
it
I
has
still
happened.
feel that it
When I
has
watched
happened,
it,
of
I
course.
think I text you wasn't Barcelona they were 3-0 up. You bet them for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's
4-0.
three.
Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
does happen,
yeah,
but I look, I honestly, I expect Arsenal to go through, but there is that nagging 1%
If
at Madrid at
yeah,
home. You just don't know.
if
yeah,
Arsenal were to get through, would you have them as favourites for the whole thing?
No, I'd have
No.
Barcelona favourites.
Alright.
yeah. What we might do is, because I just conscious of time then as well, we might just go through their Champions League games, but we might just go through with Super Six if that's all right.
Yeah, perfect.
That we have here, yeah. So we have Super Six. We've an interesting week because we've Champions League fixtures and we've also got the mighty Salford versus Doncaster in our predictions for this week.
Right.
So we'll go through these. So we kind of already talked about a bit of PSG. Moss, what do you reckon? You kind of talking about the PSG. You feel it's pretty much done.
Yeah.
What do you think it'll be on the
Uh,
night?
I've gone with PSG to win in the night 2-1. I feel like it'll be a great night at Villa Park, and they'll put everything into it. And Emre again is a great tinkerer and a great thinker about the game and good at finding like new approaches. But I just think that PSG team are just on fire at the minute, and I can't see
Mm.
anything but a PSG win.
Okay, and team that are kind of maybe not being talked about as much as they probably should be, considering they're top La Liga and fairly gave Dortmund to do in the first leg. Like Dortmund, Barcelona, is there any way back for the yellow wall?
No, definitely not. I think Barca are safely into the semi final, and they're building back up. They still have their issues financially, especially, but they are building back up. And it's been a work in progress for the last few years since Messi has left, but they're a huge club, and yeah, they're just building bit by bit. I don't think they'll win the Champions League. I do think the winner of Arsenal and PSG will be winning the Champions League against Dortmund. I'll go with a 1-1 just for the second leg, but I think the tie is over now.
Okay. And we'll keep the best for last there, that League Two scrap. But we'll go. So Madrid, we talked Madrid Arsenal there. So Moss again, are you going to Super Six? Are you going to go for 3-0 Madrid?
No, I'm going for a 2-1 Madrid win. Arsenal go through on aggregate.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll be about right.
Yeah. And then Deck, Vincent of the companies, can he turn around a deficit away in Syria at San Siro? What do you think against
No, I
Inter Milan?
no, I think it'll be a 1-1. Um, Inter Milan, their goals last week were excellent.
Mm.
Yeah,
Um,
they're super.
they were so good, and yeah, I think Vincent has brought Bayern as far as he can in the Champions League this season, the quarterfinals. Inter Milan will go through. It'll be 1-1 on the night.
Yeah, I think it will. It won't go down well considering the final is in Munich. I think there is an extra bit of kind of they really wanted to get there, but Inter have been solid. So yeah, I think we talked about last week, Moss. We kind of felt over the 2 legs that Inter would go through. So an Inter Barcelona. semi-final on the other side. It'd be a very juicy tie as
Absolutely, yeah.
well.
Very much a clash of styles.
Absolutely, yeah. Newcastle Crystal Palace deck. What do you
This is
for
their
this
game in
one?
hand. Newcastle are at home, yeah?
Yeah, Newcastle
Yeah.
at home. Yeah, it's Palace.
Yeah, 2-0 to Newcastle.
Okay, 2-0 to Newcastle. I'll move them up to third. And the best for last here. It's a big scrap here in Sky Bet League Two. Salford City versus Doncaster. Moss.
Well, I haven't a clue. And an iota. Don't know where I know who Salford are, and I couldn't tell you where in the country of England
I,
Doncaster are.
I had a quick look at it. So do you want me when I take this one?
Yeah, maybe you, because I'm
Yeah.
just going with blind hope.
Doncaster are up in the playoff places. Salford are not. But in the last few games, they're both scoring goals. So I've gone for 1-1.
1-1.
Fair point.
Well, I went for 1-1 and I did no research.
So yeah, that is our Super Six. So again, there's €100 to the winner of that. My brother Richard is still leading the way as he has been since nearly the get-go. And Darren Mitchell, this is
fair play to him. Man. That's consistency. I was talking about
Yeah.
this again with somebody, I can't remember who at the weekend, but what do you call it? He's been on top of that table more or less the whole season long. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
so therefore, like he has to have been getting, unless everyone else is getting their results incorrect, he has
Well,
been getting results consistently. You know,
yeah, I'm in two or three groups or like different groups of people for this. And out of the ones that I'm in, like he's about 35, 40 points more than any of the other groups that I'm in
there
of
you go.
lads who know what they're doing, you know.
Yeah,
But like
and
in fairness to him, he has at the moment what have we got? To the table here now. So 14-point lead. So again, it's not much, but
no,
he's been chipping away at it, and I'm sure when you see the likes of Salford and Doncaster coming
yeah.
into the mix, people there are trying to chase him down. Like what hope have you got?
I mean,
But
no, if a couple of weeks on top, fair enough, you might get lucky. But the fact he's been there all season long means that he is actually probably studying form, which is as much as he can do in predicting these results. So, I mean, fair play to him. He's on top. He deserves to be.
yeah, so that is our Super Six. That's our Champions League, and we're just going to quickly then just fantasy football. The top five, three of the top five had a triple captain to play, and they've all played it, but they've all picked Isaac, who has an assist to his name, so he's 15 points. But the second game against Palace this week, so that table will change if Isaac does the business. That table will change slightly because, as I said, three of the five had a triple captain left to play, and we've all played it. But at the moment, if you're the other two lads, you'd be hoping that Isaac does nothing or doesn't play or he's injured or whatever in the second game. But Brian O'Sullivan is now leading the way on 2,126. So he's a 4-point lead over Padraig Clark. And again, it's kind of as you were. It's quite tight. There's what is there? 17 points over between the top five. So it's again as you were. The top five
Another great ending to it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and there's still lots of madness to happen. There's a bench boost, free hits. There's different chips to still be played, and I think maybe one or two of them might. I'm not sure if they played their system manager as well. So, but when you're looking at the table there, it's you couldn't pick it at the moment. It'd be impossible to kind of even throw your hat and say such and such will you'd fancy them because it's so tight. So that is fantasy football. Yeah, and there's another double game week this week with a few sides playing. Arsenal, no, not Arsenal. Was it City? Sorry, City play twice, and Villa play twice, and Palace as well. They have twice as well. Yeah, so there's a few double game weeks on this week as well.
Are there any, as you call them, Dan, differentials within those top five?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I think Alex, my brother, probably has one that's done well, which is Eze. Nobody else has him.
Yeah.
But he didn't play Jacob Murphy last week, and the rest of us did. So that kind of counteracted that. But he'd be one in particular. I think he'd be the main one. That Eze and then the rest of Sar, and then I have Palmer, which just hasn't worked out at all. No, and I think maybe two others have Palmer. Not all of them have Palmer either, but that hasn't worked out. And then you could argue then some of the lads have put in Saka, and that just hasn't really worked out yet, really, because he's been kind of held for the Champions League more so. So, yeah, kind of the way that it is now. About I'd say nearly 7 or 8 of the starting players on each team. For example, we all have Mateta, Marmouche, and Isaac up front. So, we all have them. We all have Salah. There might be a bit of a question mark as to who you'll captain going forward, with the games that are left, and Salah not the same numbers that he was at earlier in the season. And then there's, of course, the double game week coming up now as well. So no one will really be captain Salah, I wouldn't anticipate there. But, you are talking fine margins of the 3 or 4 that you have, or whether or not they'll outscore maybe some of the others, And
Okay.
I'm looking at Palmer now in particular going, he probably has to come out now. I've held him for so long. He can't assist at the weekend, but his numbers have dwindled significantly that I should really have got rid of him before now. But so that's our Super 6 jersey for the winner of that, and that'll be probably the most interesting thing left of our podcast. Will probably be that competition for the remainder of the season and the Champions League, of course.
And actually, just a quick one. The championship table as well. I was talking to Lenny at the weekend over. He's eager to come on and talk about Leeds. Just the journey of a Leeds fan. It continues to be mad, insane, chaotic. I mean, they were so far ahead, and then all of a sudden they found themselves just back in a race, not just to win the damn thing, but a scrap just to kind of get automatically promoted, and they found themselves in third. Now they're back on top. It's going to be a hell of a finish to the championship.
Oh wow, they're back on top. Looking at here, they're back on top. Wow.
So
yeah.
you got Lenny.
Burnley lost the weekend or drew.
Yeah. And Lenny is eager to kind of come on again. So maybe in the next few weeks, as the race kind of comes to a conclusion, we'll get him back on as well.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Who are going to try and relegate Man United next season is what you're trying to say, Dick. That's what I'm taking.
Not at all. Look, not at all. No, actually, Leeds and Man United have a great rivalry. I love that rivalry.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Well, great. Yeah, vicious.
Yes.
Yeah, it's you look at there, they have 5 points. It's not as tight as it was. Wasn't it closer there? It's 5 points now to Sheffield United in third.
Sheffield have fell.
They did drop. Okay.
Well, no, have they?
Yeah, but they're still in third.
Well, they lost 3 in a row. Wow. Yeah.
Burnley and Leeds are tied on 88 points each, and Leeds' goal difference is the difference. But they have a much stronger goal difference.
So that looks like it'd be an interesting end to that as well, by the looks of it. Yeah.
Definitely.
Anyway, anything else, Ben, before we finish up?
No, that's it, lads. Thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers for being in a hot seat the last 2 weeks, man. Doing well.
Yeah, nice to see you, Declan. We have you, I think, for the few weeks anyway.
Definitely. Until the end of the season, I'll definitely be back here a good few times, I'd say. So I'm eager to see the Man City case come to fruition, but I mean, Jesus Christ, it's been pushed back. And Howard said at the weekend, Deck, it's been delayed until the summer. And I go, how do you know these things? And he just goes like this.
Howard knows things.
Trust me.
10 points deep.
Yeah, honestly, 10 points and a fucking bit of Buckfast in his system as well.
Oh,
he goes,
God.
Trust me.
Right, okay. Do you anticipate that might be the case? Yeah.
I don't know if it is.
I thought we definitely at this stage, middle April now, I thought we had some indication at least, what we're looking at, but
you never know what's going on in the background. I'd say both sides know what the result has, and maybe they're negotiating. Maybe they're talking now, saying, "Okay, damage limitation."
We'll just have to trust them that it's all going to be fair and equal.
Above board, absolutely.
Above board, everything's going to be fair. And Hank, and on that note, I'm the primary school teacher who is off for next 2 weeks, so I don't need to negotiate any of that stuff for the next one.
Very good. All right, guys.
So that is it. That has been episode 71. Thanks everyone again who tunes in and listens to us. Please like us on YouTube, Spotify, and all that jazz. And we will chat to you next week. Thank you very much. Thanks, man.
Cheers. Cheers, Dan. All right. Bye-bye.